Hi there, so I'm going to make my pumpkin spice cake mix. I'm going to make it into some mini cupcakes today. This recipe can be used as a cake, as a loaf, as a regular sized cupcake, or the mini ones that I'm going to use. It'll work for any sort of size you want. You just need to adjust the baking time. So in my bowl, I've already got 1 cup of brown sugar and 1 cup of white sugar that I've just sort of mixed together. And I also have already put together my flour mixture. So in my bowl, I have 3 cups of flour. I've got 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, and then my spices in there. I've got 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ginger, ½ a teaspoon each of nutmeg, allspice, and cloves, and then just a ½ a teaspoon of salt as well. So that's my flour mixture all ready to go. So to my sugar, I'm going to add 1 cup of vegetable shortening. All in one go. And then just turn my mixer on. Alright, and then to my sugar and shortening mixture, I'm going to add 4 eggs. And mix those in. Okay, and to that, I'm going to add 1 can of pumpkin. Now, if you want, you can easily make your own pumpkin puree, but I'm just going to use a tin of Libby's, as you can see. And then just mix that in. Alright, and after I've mixed my pumpkin in, I am just going to add to that a teaspoon of vanilla. There we go. And now I'm going to mix that in. Excellent. And then I'm going to pop in all of my flour mixture and all of the spices. There we go. So we'll just scrape that off. And then slowly mix that in. There we go. So that is my cake batter already. So I'll get my tin set up and we'll scoop those into my mini muffin tins. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got 2 of these trays set up with the little papers inside of them, and I'm just going to use a smaller little scoop that I've got, and I'm just going to put a dollop in each case. Okay, so I've got my 2 trays filled. I'm going to pop those into a preheated oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, and that's all it should take, but I will check them with a toothpick to make sure they're done before I take them out. And I will come back to show you what they look like when they're finished. Okay, so these are the finished pumpkin spice cupcakes, and I've just let them cool in the pan for about 10 minutes, and then I took them out and let them finish cooling on the wire rack. So we still need to do 2 more steps. One is get the icing ready, so the buttermilk buttercream icing, and 2 is to make the candied pecan sort of dust almost, or crumble, to go over the top of these. So I'll get set up to do the topping first, the candied pecan topping, so that has time to cool, and while that's cooling we can make the icing. So let me get set up for that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got a little pan here. We're going to make the candied pecans. I've got about a cup of pecans here. I'm just going to pop them into the pan dry and turn it on to medium heat. And I'm just going to toast them a little bit in the pan before I add in my sugar and my maple syrup. So off to the side, I've got 2 tablespoons of packed brown sugar, and I've got 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. So I'm just going to toast these off until they're fragrant. Okay, so they're just starting to toast. You can see the little darker bits just around the edges. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm just going to keep the heat. It's on a medium heat. I'm actually going to make it a medium-low heat just while I add this stuff in. And I'm going to add in my sugar and my maple syrup. And grab a bigger spoon. There we go. I'm just going to toss to combine. Do be very careful. This is boiling sugar, so extremely hot. And I'm just going to let that boil till it's sort of, you can already see that it's quite sticky and sticking obviously to the pecans. So I'm just going to let it cook for maybe a couple minutes or so. Making sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. So I like toasting the pecans in the pan first so the pan gets nice and hot. Not only do you get the toasted pecans, but then the pan is nice and hot for when you add the sugar. So you can just start to see that the sugar is crystallizing on these, which means they're done. So I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to move my pan over, and then I'm just going to dump them straight onto my pan and then spread them out to let them cool down. So they've got a nice sort of crystallized kind of candied outside to them. And then all I'm going to do, once these have cooled down to room temperature, I'm just going to blitz them a couple of times in my little mini food processor. And that'll give me smaller little bits, and sort of the dust comes with that. And that's what I'll sprinkle over the top of the cupcakes. So while this is cooling, we'll get the icing going. Okay, so to make the buttermilk buttercream icing, it's just a basic buttercream recipe, but instead of using water or milk to dilute it to the consistency that you want, I'm going to use buttermilk. So it just adds a little bit of a tang to it, which I find quite nice with the pumpkin spice. So in my bowl, I have 2 sticks of butter that I'm just going to whip up first. There we go. And then to that, I'm going to add 1 pound, or about 4 cups of icing sugar, confectioner sugar. And then I'm going to stir that in. Okay, and I'm going to start by adding a 1/4 cup of buttermilk. And then I'll see how the consistency looks and maybe add more. Okay, and I am happy with that. So I will grab my pastry bag and a nozzle. You can use whatever nozzle you want. I'm going to use a large round nozzle for these today. And we'll pop some icing onto our cupcakes. Okay, so I've popped my icing into a bag just with a large round tip. This is a Wilton 2A, and I have pureed or pulsed, not really pureed, I have just chopped up my pecans in my food processor, my little mini chopper, so I've got more of a crumbly kind of dusty kind of sweetness that will be crunchy and over the top. If you don't have a food processor, that's all right. You can chop them up by hand. It'll just take a little bit more time, but then these are just going to be the sprinkles for the top. So all I'm going to do is more like a big Hershey kiss than anything on the top. So I'm just going to hold it close, squeeze, and then pull up. So a nice little topping just like that. So I don't know if you can see. There you go. So it just has a little sort of kiss to the top of it. And then you would just take some of your sprinkles and just put your candied pecans that you've crumbled over the top, just like that. It's a little bit of a crunch. Now, by all means, if you want to keep your pecans larger than that or whole, the halves, you can put a whole little half on there. I think I've got one of those left. Let me grab that. So if you do your little kiss like that, then you can always just put one little pecan on the top of it like that if you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and ice all of mine, and then I will show you them all finished. Okay, and here are the finished cupcakes. So these are my spiced pumpkin mini cupcakes with a buttermilk buttercream icing on the top and a lovely little sprinkle of some candied pecans just on the top for a little bit of crunch and flavor. Do give them a go. They're really lovely and very yummy. You don't need to do the mini cupcakes. You can do the regular size cupcakes or a loaf or a cake or anything like that. But do give it a try. Lots of fun. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. And please subscribe to see what else I'm up to.